Welcome back to Eyes on Yahweh. Let's explore the beauty of being restored in all areas of life after the devastation of a prolonged season of loss. Be sure to watch the entire video and enjoy the original song played at the end. We like to think that chronic illness is purely a physical battle, but anyone who has ever faced a long-term medical crisis knows the terrifying truth. The disease is often just the first domino to fall. Consider what happens even today when a severe chronic condition takes hold. First, it attacks your livelihood. When a body is plagued by constant draining exhaustion, maintaining a traditional job becomes impossible. The missed shifts add up. The sick leave runs out. In our modern economy, if you cannot physically show up, you cannot keep a job. Then come the finances, the specialized treatments, the continuous testing, the endless cycle of doctors who promise answers but leave you with nothing but mounting debt. Even with modern insurance, a long-term illness can completely drain a lifetime of savings, pushing an individual to the absolute brink of bankruptcy. But perhaps the quietest cruelty of chronic illness is what it does to your relationships. The constant pain forces you to cancel plans. You withdraw. Friends, unsure of what to say, slowly stop calling. A romantic partner faces a burden they never signed up for, leading to strained bonds or painful separations. The illness builds an invisible wall around you, leaving you economically squeezed, financially depleted, and profoundly isolated. Now, take all of that modern devastation and multiply it by a culture that lacks our medicine, our safety nets, and our empathy. Imagine a fatigue so profound it settles deep into the marrow of your bones. A persistent, quiet draining of vitality that you are completely powerless to stop. For 12 years, 4,380 days, this was the baseline reality for one unnamed woman. In the ancient world, her condition was a medical mystery. In our modern language, we understand the brutal science of chronic hemorrhaging. Day after day, her body was leaking its most vital resource, resulting in severe unremitting iron-deficiency anemia. Think of what that means for the human frame. Her brain and muscles were constantly starved of oxygen. Every morning began with intense dizziness. Every simple task, from standing up to fetching water, was an uphill battle against breathless exhaustion and physical vulnerability. She was a living shadow, carrying a body that was quite literally running out of life. But the physical torment of anemia was only half of her sentence. The cultural reality of her era turned a medical crisis into a social execution. Under the strict Levitical laws of first-century Judea, a state of chronic bleeding meant one definitive label: unclean. To understand her isolation, we must understand the weight of that word. It wasn't a temporary quarantine, it was a total social excommunication. Legally, anything she sat on became unclean. Anyone she touched became defiled. Consider the profound psychological devastation of this law. It meant she was barred from entering the temple to pray. It meant she could not embrace her parents, her siblings, or her friends. She was deemed completely unworthy of marriage, a societal rejection that, in her culture, stripped a woman of her ultimate identity, security, and protection. If she had been married when the illness began, the law would have forced a swift, lonely divorce. She was legally shunned, forced to walk through a crowded world as a permanent ghost. When your body is failing and society has turned its back, you look for a cure at any cost, and she did. The historical accounts tell us she suffered many things under many physicians. In those days, medical remedies for hemorrhaging ranged from superstitious tonics to agonizing, invasive physical procedures. She endured them all, clinging to the desperate hope of reclaiming her life. But hope in the ancient world was expensive. To pay for these failed cures, she had to navigate total economic ruin. Because of her constant physical weakness and her legal status as an outcast, she could not keep a job. She could not participate in the marketplace trade. One by one, her resources vanished. She paid the doctors until there was nothing left to give. She didn't just remain sick, she became completely bankrupt. She was physically depleted, socially isolated, and economically destitute. She had reached the absolute end of human survival. It is at this exact intersection of poverty, exhaustion, and isolation that she hears a rumor. A teacher from Galilee is passing through. By law, she had no right to be in that street. If the crowd realized who she was, her presence would have sparked outrage for defiling the people around her. But when you have lost everything, conventional fear dies. Weak from anemia, pressed hard by a suffocating crowd, she drops to her knees. She crawls through the dust unnoticed, driven by a solitary revolutionary thought. If I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. She wasn't aiming for a conversation. She didn't ask for an audience. She reached for the tzitzit, the sacred blue and white fringe on the hem of his robe, the place representing the commands and authority of God. With one trembling touch, the currency of heaven met the absolute bankruptcy of earth. In an instant, the bleeding stopped. The constant 12-year drain on her life was severed at its root. But watch what happens next. Jesus stops the entire crowd. He asks, "Who touched my clothes?" He didn't ask because he was looking for a thief. He asked because he refused to let her leave as a hidden outcast. Jesus felt the power of her faith when she touched him. Although there were many people in contact with him at the same time, her touch of unwavering faith was different. When she stepped forward in fear, he looked at her and spoke a word she hadn't heard in over a decade. He called her daughter. From that moment, she was made whole. With one word, he restored her identity. He didn't just fix her anemia, he healed her social exile. He declared her clean before the very community that had shunned her. He handed her back her dignity, her financial peace, and her future. Perhaps you find yourself in a season where your resources have run completely dry, physically exhausted, socially isolated, or feeling economically squeezed, standing at the absolute end of your own strength. Remember the woman who crawled through the dust. When the world tells you that you are depleted, a single moment of reaching out in faith can rewrite your entire story. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's keep our eyes on Yahweh.
God will restore the years that were stolen. Yes, He will. He will bring dead bones back to life. Yes, He will. He will renew the heart that's been broken. Yes, He will. Restoration, a compensation, a testimony of joy is coming to my life. Everything I lost is coming back to me.